These are those awkward Zoom moments they talk about, right? When you're waiting to start a meeting.
It's harder to chit chat on Zoom.
Yeah, especially when you've got 9 people listening that you can't see.
Yeah, that's true too.
Are we waiting on Cornell, Guy, and Vic?
Cornell's not coming. Oh, I forgot to send it to Vic. I sent the updated one to. No, I don't mean I forgot to send it to him at all. Just the updated one.
So Guy's got no excuse.
None.
And now he has it twice.
Traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Randy.
There's Randy.
Hey, Nancy, Deputy Mayor Pasurcia is in the attendees. You want to promote him to a panelist?
Do we need to?
Oh, I forgot something. Wait, I gotta get something. A collared shirt.
I'm going to put a blazer on too.
Just as long as your closet's closed there.
That's a nice California closet.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out, actually. There's a dirty shirt there.
I think we have everybody.
Good?
Ah,
Yes.
Much better, Guy.
All right. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting, specifically the time, date, and public call-in information were included in the meeting that was electronically sent to the Echo Sentinel and posted on the Township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed on www.longhillnj.gov. A public comment period will be held in the order as listed on the meeting agenda. When the mayor opens the public comment portion, if you're using a computer and would like to add a public comment, please raise your hand. To raise your hand, click on the participants button on the bottom bar located on the bottom of your screen. Once the bar pops up, scroll to the right and there will be an option to raise your hand. If you're dialing in and would like to make a public comment, press *9 when the mayor opens up the public comment.
Thanks, Megan. With that, I'll call the Long Hill Township Committee meeting of April 22nd to order.
I'm sorry. Vic is here. Hold on.
I'm back.
Okay. All right, so I'll call the meeting to order. If everyone could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Nancy, if you'd like to be able to share the screen so I can hang up the flag.
How do I do that? I'm
It's
sharing
saying-
my,
It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
I think I did that when I was preparing for the last meeting because, so that it was Zoom bomb proof.
Okay.
Why don't you just hold it up in front of you?
Because it's on the computer. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, you had a real flag last time, didn't you? Oh, that's the one.
There you go.
There we go. Pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic
Republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
for all.
So, Megan, if you could take the roll, please.
Committeeman Dorsey,
Here.
Committeeman Schuler will not be joining us. Committeeman Verleza,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia,
Present.
Mayor Ray.
Present. Thanks, Megan. I'm going to have a little bit of I'm going to rearrange the agenda a little bit tonight. And before the proclamation, I'm going to ask Paul if he could give us his presentation on the Central Park and land diversion issue. I know Paul has another meeting after this that he has time for.
And I appreciate that. And I can't believe that the one night that I had one meeting, I had three. So everybody's learning how to do this technology a little too quickly for me. Thank you, Mayor, for moving me up on the agenda. One thing I wanted to talk about, give everybody a little bit of an update on the status on where we are with the diversion and the land swap. We had a meeting with the Morris County Open Space people and the DEP last month to talk about the status and go over some of the comments that Green Acres had on the diversion application. And there were a number of items that they talked about that we have to address in a resubmission of the pre-application before they would recognize that it's ready for a final application. One of the biggest challenges that they gave us was, why can't this be done with the acquisition of an easement across the property rather than actually swapping of the land? There were a number of reasons why they were looking for the municipality to do that. They were frankly pushing pretty hard in that direction. Now, when we submitted the application, the pre-application initially, that was one of the alternatives that we had to discuss. And we went through that. And we gave them what I thought was some pretty reasonable justification for that. They're going to want some more. And I don't know if they're eventually going to say yes or no to the actual land swap, but I just wanted to let everybody be aware that they are pushing back on that. And they were wanting to find out why this could not be an easement instead. A couple of things they said that will require recasting some of the numbers is that the land that's underneath the access that provides the shared access to the Walgreens and the other property, the value of that land would not count towards the value of the acquisition land. So we would have to redo those numbers. They were also questioning some other details on the acquisition land that generally would drive those values down. So we're going to have to look at all those numbers again. Area-wise, we are fine. The problem is that we've got to get the valuation and assessment up on the acquisition property. And when Morris County chimed in, they were at the meeting. When we initially started the process, Morris County told us to go through the Green Acres process, and Morris County kind of follows that. Well, at this meeting, they said they have a separate process as well, which will require a public hearing, again, with Morris County involved, The Green Acres people also said that they will require a second public hearing as part of the final application. And those two public hearings could be combined as a single meeting. So that doesn't present a huge issue, but it's just recognizing that we have to have another public hearing on the process. They outlined some of the information that we need to do. They made it clear that as part of the final application is when we have to get into some significant expenditures, which is why they want to make sure that we are clear from their end as part of the pre-application. When we go into the final application, we have to do things like a formal preliminary environmental assessment. We have to identify any areas of concern on the acquisition parcel. They will need to be addressed in accordance with the DEP standards. We have to do formal surveys and a subdivision of the land, monumentation of the property, and those sort of steps are the things that we have to do as part of the final application.
Thanks, Paul. So, Paul, in regard to the Green Acres in the Morris County, do you see any kind of problem there, or is that really just a meeting that they have to have?
Well, the biggest problem and the strongest pushback I got was that they all wanted they were trying to push us towards an easement. Basically said they felt it might be cheaper to buy the easement than it would be to go through the entire process that we have ahead of us.
And the argument as far as the easement goes, we made an argument initially for that. Does that still hold, or do we need to somehow make that stronger?
It's got to be made stronger. They didn't buy the argument. The argument that we made initially was that if we do it as an easement, it chops up that property that we're going through and makes the land on the west side of it, or I'm sorry, the east side of it, smaller and not as valuable to the property owner. So the cost of that easement would be out of proportion for basically any kind of another regular easement if we were just getting an access easement across a piece of property. They said, well, you're giving away land. The land that's being disposed of is land that has frontage on Valley Road, so that has a certain amount of value. So they were concerned about that. That was really the direction that they were pushing. We talked a little bit about whether or not the access could be a public street, and they basically said if it's a public street, it doesn't count for any value and it doesn't count for any land area. So that would definitely be something we would not want to do. And as we had it proposed, and as I would continue to propose it, it would be municipal property running down there with the driveway to the park and an easement granted to the adjoining properties for access.
Well, if I heard you correctly, though, if it were to proceed, they wanted us to increase the value of the acquisition property. Did I hear correctly? And if so, how?
Well, they said, is there any other township land that can be, or any other land that the township can acquire that can be thrown into the pot, basically? I was completely non-committal on that because I didn't have any information to give them, but that's what they asked. They said, if you fall short on the value, you can make it up by getting additional land or by throwing money in.
Oh, okay. I think I follow now. So in other words, if we were to purchase privately owned property elsewhere to add to the value.
To add to the compensation value. It doesn't necessarily
Understood.
have to be contiguous with this.
It could be anywhere in
the
town.
open space inventory in the town.
Brendan, you don't need your backyard, do you?
No, actually, so to that point, Paul, so could it be land that we currently own that's not, or is all our land currently on the?
It's land that we currently own that is not on the recreation and open space inventory.
Which isn't very much, right?
Not very much.
I don't think it's very much.
Town hall.
Right. It might be you. It might be our backyard, Sky. You and me.
Oh,
So
Oh,
Paul,
Paul, what's their biggest beef that they have if you had to rank them? Like their biggest problem?
Their biggest problem is they were pushing very strong for the easement, and that was
Did they- No,
that's
go
part
ahead.
of it with the valuation as well. They wanted additional backup on the valuations. Now we have that from our appraiser.
That thing froze.
Yeah, froze.
I think it's not looking good for Paul's Wi-Fi.
Oh, you can try to come back in, I guess.
Yeah. So Nancy, I mean, just before Paul comes back, I mean, I think this is where Matt was going. Are there any of these that seem kind of insurmountable at the moment, or are they, in the conversations that you've had so far, does it look as though we can work our way through them?
Well, I think the biggest decision for you to make is about the easement, because they were really pushing to get an easement in lieu of doing the diversion. So I think that's the biggest
But what
biggest
good
thing
is
they brought up.
they don't understand the one man's trash, another man's treasure philosophy, because the land that we're getting really has no use for the park, and the land that we're giving up has, you can only use it for one thing or another. Because isn't there a barrier too? So you have to put a bridge over the land. It makes no sense.
No, I'm talking about an easement to get in
Yeah,
to the driveway by Walgreens.
yeah, no, I understand that,
Right.
but they want to do that instead of the diversion, correct?
Yeah, because if you did that, you wouldn't need the diversion.
Could we do both?
yeah, but
It's the same
apparently
land.
the easement
issues
has no
with it.
value, so we'd still have to, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd still have to come up with something to add to the
Yeah,
value.
but what value is a piece of land to the owner of that property in Gillette when this property's just still, he can't do anything with it?
It sounds like even if we got
Park.
the easement, they would definitely not approve the diversion then. I think they're basically saying the diversion is not necessary.
But what if we? I mean, I guess they're saying we'd have to do it by eminent domain.
Condemn,
We couldn't
yeah.
go back and just
Yes.
say we can't get it.
Right.
But Paul said that we could potentially do it this way if not with land, then with money.
Right. We'd have to get money from Spiro.
Right.
Wait, he has to give us money?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're saying we're not getting
Well-
enough value in return.
Right,
for what we're
because
giving up.
Right.
Yes, but that's value to us is the where it is located. That's the,
I don't disagree, but
okay.
and I wasn't part of these conversations, but reading Paul's memo and listening to Paul and Nancy, their position is we're giving up more than we're getting.
I understand. Okay.
So Paul, while you were away, we actually solved the whole problem. So
And you see, I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast
I see that. Yeah.
while my internet was crashing.
So
I'm on my iPad now, which has cell service, but my internet is dead.
So Paul, I mean, you were answering Matt's question.
About what their biggest complaint was.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Probably the first one is the easement versus the acquisition. They felt very strongly that the easement was the best way to go. Secondarily, and it was also related to that, was the valuation, because the fact that it is an easement and or that if we acquire the land, we are giving away an easement necessarily to the adjoining properties, that drives down the value of the land that we are taking.
Paul, I'm sure you pointed it out, but the whole reason for this was to access that traffic light. So their point is you can still access the traffic light if you simply, I guess it's exercise eminent domain to get
If you can't
easement?
negotiate and buy it, yes.
What are our options to create the easement that's necessary? I heard eminent domain and a possible purchase. Are there any other options for us, or those are the two?
Those are the two.
And what would you recommend? How would we move forward? Because it appears as if this is the first obstacle we need to jump over.
Well, if you choose to go the easement route in eminent domain, you know, it would definitely succeed. The question would be the compensation. And as Paul pointed out, it's the damage to the residual property. So it could get expensive.
But I mean, the point here is that we're trying to put together a park, right? And this gives us more usable land or more land for the park, right?
Yes.
So they didn't respond to that argument.
No, and that was not their part of their opinion. Was you're giving away land that's part of the park, and some of the land that you're getting in the acquisition is down in the floodplain and or wetlands transition areas, so it is not as useful for the park.
But I thought some of it actually was. I mean, as far as we were concerned, we could you know, by virtue of this diversion, we could actually make better use of the land that we had, and maybe, you know, use for overflow parking.
Yeah, there is obviously some land that we would be acquiring where we can use that. You know, and there are ways to configure it on the land that we would be disposing of, but it's not as efficient, but it could be done, and that they're really looking at those things. And part of what we would have to do in order to demonstrate that we can't do the easement is have additional conversations with the property owner, see is he willing at all to negotiate, or do we have to go to eminent domain? And also they're going to be looking for alternative plans as if we did not get the land.
Paul, if we're not able to negotiate and we would have to proceed by eminent domain, would they be more likely to approve the diversion?
Probably. Probably.
That's what it sounds like. That's why I asked.
Yes.
Paul, who has the bigger issue, the county or the DEP?
They were both saying the same thing.
So you don't know who's driving this?
No, the meeting was basically called by the DEP because they were the ones that were most deeply involved. The county had not gotten too involved in it yet. They do want to review the entire application. They have it. I haven't heard any comments back from them separate from the state, but I do have to follow up with them to see if they have anything different than we've already heard.
Except that what I would say is that the county seemed a little more upset than the DEP, because the county feels like they were ignored throughout this, and you know Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, they seemed to look like a little more
Offended?
it was a little more what?
Offended?
Yeah, it was a little more important to them to make sure that we dotted every I and crossed every T, because they were offended that they were what they considered to be left out of the process.
Right, because when we had our original conversations, they said, go to the DEP, and when you're done with them, come see us.
Which is what we did, though.
Which is what we did. But now they're saying, well, the state is giving you comments. You know, we should be giving you comments now as well, and we don't know anything about this. Although we've had generalized conversations with them in the past.
I mean, think about it. It's been what, how many years since this first started? So, you know, maybe they've had different people or whatever, but it was one of the few times I would say the DEP was the more reasonable agency in the room.
Could be the only time.
Who at the, I mean, what entity at the county is the one that's opining here?
Open space. Because county open space is involved because they're the ones who funded the original park acquisition.
So what do you recommend as a plan of action? Right, we've got DEP. We try and meet their you know, the stipulations that they've laid down, and then we might have the county that we have to deal with after that. So what do you recommend here?
Well, this is, I think we need to do the next round of deep discussions with the property owner to see if he's going to grant an easement or not. It's going to have to be formal, and it's going to have to be documented. So we're going to have to get a written response from him to a written request to grant or sell an easement to the municipality. That's the first thing we're going to have to do. And secondly, we have to get the appraisals updated. And we already have had Norm Goldberg working on that and has done the initial work. But based on the guidance from the DEP and the county, they were both saying the same thing about that. We have to have them update those numbers. What I would suggest is we go through those two things and then see where we are. If we have the conversation with the property owner and for some reason he says, sure, I'll give you an easement for $10, well, then we're done, because we know we're not going to get the land swap approved. If, however, he says, no, you're never going to get it from me without taking it through eminent domain, then we have a different answer that we can give to the state. And at the same time, we have to do the updated appraisals.
Paul, if it's by eminent domain and we don't have a willing seller, how is an easement valued?
It's the loss of value to the remaining property. And as Paul pointed out, if a portion of it is greatly diminished in value because the easement cuts through it, then the compensation is going to be higher.
If it's just an easement through the property, the land on the east side of the easement is very narrow. And it doesn't have that much potential. If you do the land swap, then it gets much wider by the land that's being added from the municipality. So just as Jack says, you've got the reduction in the value of the land where the easement comes off.
So correct me if I'm wrong, at the least, because we're going to have to consider all of our options, would it be appropriate to direct the Open Space Committee to maybe look at some properties that might be of some value to the town that we could purchase through open space?
No, but we can't use open space. We can't use town open space trust fund money to buy land that we're going to use for compensation. We would have to buy it with general revenues and add it then to our Rossi.
Do we have any idea of what value they're looking at?
No, because we have to get the assessments, the appraisals updated based on the feedback from the state.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, I think we have a plan then, right? We'll talk to the property owner. Jack, I don't know whether you want to open up those discussions or you want, or we can select some people from the committee to have them, or maybe Nancy. Nancy can do it.
However you want to do it. If you want me to do it, I'd be happy to.
So
He called me not that long ago, so I'd be happy to call him.
yeah. Okay.
That
So
makes the most sense.
yeah. Sorry, Jack.
That probably makes the most sense. I'd be happy to contact him, but
Right. Okay. So we'll contact the property owner, and then we'll have to get back to the appraiser, right, Paul?
Yes.
To start looking.
I
at
can
those
coordinate with him because that can be done in parallel because we're going to need that anyway.
yeah, we
Okay.
may want to craft a letter to the property owner and then alert him that it's coming.
Right.
Setting forth what we're looking for and then asking for a formal response after we talk to him.
Right, because they're going to want this backed up on paper.
Okay.
I'm sorry, while we're in the process of negotiations with the landowner, is there anything we could do from the application side to try to expedite the process so it's not 2 years from now and we're having this conversation still?
Well, that's why I would update the appraisals at the same time, because
Okay.
we're going to get to another decision point where we're going to go one way or the other, and the one thing that we're going to need regardless is going to be the appraisals, so we can get that up to speed. And I will also follow up with the county to see if they have any comments on the documents that I sent them.
Did you say something about a survey also that needed to be updated?
That's part of the final application, and that's
Got
going to be more work down the road.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. We've got our plan in place, and we'll get going on it. So thanks very much.
All right. Thank you. Everybody stay healthy.
Good night,
Thank you,
Paul.
Paul.
Thank you.
So moving on, we will now move to the proclamation for Arbor Day.
Hold on.
Megan, do you want to put it up on the screen, or do you want me just to read it?
No, I'm trying to do it. Hang on. Okay.
Oh, look at that.
Wait.
Hey.
So this is a proclamation for Arbor Day. Whereas Arbor Day is celebrated on the last weekend of April to remind us of the rebirth that's spring and the importance of trees in our world. And whereas in a year like this, where fear and uncertainty rule the news, Arbor Day can be symbolic of our faith, of our hope for the future. And whereas when you plant a tree, it is not going to be just you, the planter, who will enjoy that tree. The shade it provides and the fall and the spring beauty will continue for decades. And whereas as it grows, the tree will prevent the soil from being washed away. It will catch the rain and slowly return it to the earth. It will clean the air, grabbing dust and chemicals. It will use carbon dioxide and release the oxygen that we need to breathe. Whereas our grandchildren will enjoy these benefits too. We plant trees for the future of the earth and humanity. Now, therefore, I, Brendan Ray, Mayor of the Township of hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 22nd day of April 2020.
Okay. Give me a second.
So, thanks very much to our Shade Tree Commission and Susan Jeans in particular. Just some news on the challenge grant that happens this time of year. Right now we have 22 trees as part of the challenge grant, and those include 6 that will be planted at Heritage Road. So again, thanks to Shade Tree and also to the staff of DPW for all their hard work, because they will be the ones who are planting those trees. So thanks to everyone. So with that, I'll move on to the consent agenda resolutions. Would anyone like any of the resolutions discussed or pulled for further discussion? Hearing no one, I'll entertain a motion to move resolutions number 20-137 to 20-144 as stated in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Dorsey,
Yes.
Committeeman Schuler, I'm sorry, Committeeman Verleza,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia,
Yes.
Mayor Ray.
Yes. Thank you. Move on now to the liaison reports. Matt, you might have
Yes.
a couple of things.
Yes, thank you. From the DPW, they are still doing mulch delivery, so please call and arrange your delivery. As I said many times, you can pick up as much as you want for free. However, they are, if you want it delivered to your house, it's $100 a load. They are not doing bulk pickup, as many of you found out recently, and it's not in May either, so please do not put anything out in May for bulk pickup, and they're not accepting it down at the yard either right now because we have no way to get it out of there. And they're still doing their basins. I know they're filling potholes and they're doing maintenance and things like that. So keep an eye out for them. And next, from the fire department, I know they've been busy. I like to congratulate both our fire companies. There was a house fire on Sunday afternoon on Passaic, and but for their quick reaction, they saved the house. The people can move back in and nobody was hurt. So also thank our mutual aid companies who came in. I believe New Providence, Lions, maybe Berkeley Heights, and Warren was involved. So thank you to everybody, plus our great men and women from the fire departments for basically saving the day, literally, and keeping that house up there. So I appreciate it, and so does the people that that you guys saved. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
And it just, I mean, just as you say, the in regard to the structure fire on Saturday in Passaic, it really was a special kudos goes out to the Stirling Fire Company. They were there within minutes and quickly extinguished the fire. So it's a tribute to Chief Gallo and the officer group there and the dedication to training. So that was a great stop. Guy?
Nothing, I don't have specific numbers, but I think we all see it. The first aid squad has been incredibly busy over the last couple of weeks. So just a shout out. They do their work quietly behind the scenes and without a lot of fanfare. So the least we can do is just thank them here. And I believe, Brendan, you'll probably give an update on the task force, but you'll give an update. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the committee and the residents of Long Hill. You guys are working very hard, again, behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Guy. Vic?
I'm going to report on rec. I'd like to thank Lisa Scanlon for staying on top of rules and regulations that continue to make our parks and trails safe for all of our residents to enjoy. Thank you to DPW for keeping them beautiful. I've been enjoying Cantor Field on a regular basis. Our residents are social distancing. They're kind and courteous to each other. I would say, please stay off the playgrounds and stay off the fields. I saw a couple of young kids get pinched playing ball there today by Long Hill's finest. So the rules, enjoy the parks. And again, thank you, Lisa and DPW, for keeping them beautiful and safe.
Thank you, Vic. So I'll give a liaison report for the police department. Self-initiated activity and calls for service this year to date, 5,195. So the police department are still busy, even although we're in the times that we're in. School activity is not surprisingly fairly stagnant at 639. That hasn't moved. Motor vehicle stops year to date, 603. Community policing and proactive residential radar posts, 457. And there have been 9 incidents that have led to 11 miscreants being detained. Just by way of special requests, the police department asks that for updates during the week to executive orders and COVID-19 updates, please be sure to visit the Long Hill Township's COVID-19 task force link at longhillnj.gov, as well as the police department and their Facebook page. I'll just give a quick update on the task force, the COVID-19 task force. We had a town hall meeting on Friday, and thanks to everyone who attended. It was the first time really that the task force was together, and we were able to ask, we were able to give updates and answer questions from the residents, and so it seemed to go well. And thanks again to everybody who participated. The part of the news at this point, what the task force is doing is beginning to divert its attention to what will we do as we begin to open up the town again. And so we had some good conversations at the last task force meeting on Monday as to some of the initiatives that we might be recommending in order to do that in a safe way, both for employees and residents. And so I'll be bringing the task force will bring forth some, as I say, some recommendations for that in the coming weeks. The other new initiative that we're going to be opening up, or we're going to be opening up on Friday, is the mental health hotline. And so basically, there are a number of licensed therapists and counsellors who live in the township, and they volunteered their time to assist in this endeavour during the time of the crisis. And so it will be 7 days a week. We'll announce the hours that it will be open. But if residents are feeling any kind of loneliness or anxiety or isolation, they can call the hotline, and there'll be all conversations are going to be held strictly confidential, and they will be anonymous if that's what the caller wishes. So I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in setting that up so far. And as I say, we hope to go live with it on Friday. So that's it for.
Brendan's muted.
I know. I don't know how that happened. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So Nancy, would you like to go on with the administrator's report?
Yes. So the new traffic signal at Mountain Valley is finally complete, and the county engineer did a walkthrough today with the contractor, and they didn't find any problems. So as I said at the last meeting, after traffic starts to get back to normal, we'll see if there are any timing issues that come up, and the county's always happy to make any changes that we need. We received notification that the DOT state aid applications are due on July 1st. So Al and Paul and I have been talking about different projects that we can recommend to you to apply for this year. And as Committeeman Dorsey mentioned, there is no bulk pickup this month in April or in May. That is due to a staffing shortage at Republic due to the virus. We tried to get word out in as many ways as we could, but there's still a lot of people who have items out at the curb. And our code enforcement person went out today, and there were 41 houses with items out at the curb, and there's still 2 days left for 2 different zones. So hopefully, people are listening to this meeting and won't put anything out, and hopefully the people who do have things out at the curb will bring them in. Otherwise, we have a plan where the code enforcement officer is going to put notices out on the actual items that are out at the curb. And I guess then if they don't bring them in, eventually, he'll just have to give out a violation notice. I mean, we really don't want to give out violations for this because it is unusual and people are used to it, being the last week of the month. But, it has to be brought in eventually. You can't have stuff sitting out, for 50 some odd residents' houses. So we have to find a way to get it inside. So hopefully people will be listening. Maybe this will be in the paper, hopefully. And people who have stuff out will bring it in, and those who are remaining for the next couple of days won't put anything out. In the same
If I could interject there, because we had a example here in the neighborhood, and there was some confusion. Bulk is not the same as white goods. White goods, which are collected by the township, are still on a bi-monthly schedule, and I don't think I spoke with DPW Director Al Gallo. That's not April. It will be next month, so they can still call or however that is arranged. And to your point, I think it should be emphasized, this is nothing the town can do. This is a staffing issue with Republic, and I think it's an issue statewide. It's a problem that a lot of municipalities are running into. There's not much we can do about it. I realize it's an inconvenience, but all things considered, with what is happening, it's a minor inconvenience to everything else. It just
Right.
adds to it, so it makes it a little raw.
Yeah, and the fact that it's difficult, I guess, to reach everybody unless, we didn't want to do reverse 911 because that's really for emergencies.
Mhm.
So you're right. I mean, the white goods is that's done by the DPW, and we switched this year to this year, I think, right? We switched every other month.
Mhm.
So as of right now, that's on in May. Hopefully that will remain. But that you're right, it's a contractor and it's out of our control. And unfortunately, they have a lot of significant number of employees who can't work anymore. Not necessarily because they're sick, but a lot of them because of childcare issues, things like that. So who knows, maybe things will improve and maybe they'll be able to start in May, but as of now, they said they can't do May either. So
Thank you, Nancy.
that's all I have. Brendan, you're still on, you're not on mute on my end, so.
Okay, I'm off mute now, right?
Yes.
Some people prefer it when I'm on mute.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So moving on, we've covered the Central Park and the land diversion issue. So the next topic is the late tax prepayment interest rate. And at the moment, I believe the if you're late on the tax payments, there's an 8% on the first $1,500 and then 18% thereafter.
That's correct.
And so, Guy, I know that you had brought this to our attention.
Well, I think, as is often the case, the road to heck is paved with good intentions. It sounded good in theory, but the reality of it is it's a little bit more complex. And Randy, you and I spoke about it, and I spoke with a couple of other towns. And even the league, which originally recommended pursuing that, realized it's not quite as simple as first thought. And Jack, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I think the state statute complicates life if you were to lower it for this specific purpose. And I would point out, and I'm trying to remember who mentioned it to me, but the state legislature is trying to come up with some way where they can make something specific to COVID-19 related issues going forward, and maybe give municipalities some flexibility. But Randy, or Jack, I believe it's not as simple as just reducing the interest rate on the May payment or reducing the interest rate on the next quarter's payment. There's other moving parts. So I know I brought it up, but I wouldn't support it now.
Yeah, I think you're right, Deputy Mayor. The biggest issue that I don't think people fully understand is once you change the interest, and let's presume 0% because that's what everybody's been talking about. It's not retroactive. So the first quarter is already at 8 and 18%, as the mayor mentioned, and going forward, this quarter coming up would be 0%. And anything forward until you do a resolution to change it again. But it can never go back. It can never go retroactive. So for instance, if you do it just for this quarter for May 1st and you do another resolution increasing it back to 8 and 18% for August, the people get a window of 90 days. Because if they pay taxes in August and want to pay August, we have to apply taxes to the oldest outstanding taxes that are due. So that'll go to the 0%, and then if they become delinquent, then it's 8 and 18. The people that you're really helping out here are the people that are habitually late every year and that pay maybe once a year before tax sale, and they'll get the benefit of having that quarter at 0% up until they pay. Now, there has been a bill passed by the Assembly to give authorization to the Director of Local Government Services to extend the grace periods not only on taxes but other things, instead of having to go change laws every time this is mentioned. And I think, Deputy Mayor, that's what you were referring to. However, the Senate hasn't approved it. It's there. I think they meet on Monday and Thursday. So hopefully tomorrow they may pass something. And if they do, I would fully recommend that you look at that, of extending the grace period to give people a little more time to pay their taxes without penalty. And then the interest would go back to the May 1st if they don't pay within that grace period. And that would be up to the director to set the maximum days that you can extend the grace period. And
The grace period now is 10 days?
Right now it's 10 days. So 10 days falls on a Sunday or a holiday or Saturday. It's the next business day. So, we're fully operational with taxes. And so I think the 10th, if I'm not mistaken, falls on a Sunday in May. So people will have until the 11th.
Thank
As
you,
I
Andrew.
understand it too, the current software is not capable of calculating different interest rates for different quarters during the year. So it'll all have to be done manually. And if somebody's already in arrear for the first quarter, it would be at 8 and 18. And whatever was set for the second and third quarters, it would be an administrative nightmare.
And I would concur with that.
Because you'd have to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, to point, Mr. Mayor, like I said, the road to heck is paved with good intentions. I think it sounded good when it came out of my mouth, but the reality isn't what I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Guy. When you first mentioned it, it seemed like a good thing to consider. But as you say, the more you dig, you realize that it has many repercussions. So moving on, I think we've come to the painful conclusion that this year we're going to have to cancel our annual Memorial Day remembrance. We usually have a parade, and so we still want to mark the day. And Nancy, I know you've some ideas on how we could actually perhaps do that.
Yeah, I was talking with the recreation director because she obviously is the one who usually coordinates the Memorial Day parade, and we're assuming that you would probably end up canceling it. So I'd mentioned that it might be nice to have residents, if they wanted to, they could send in photos of themselves with messages of remembrance for Memorial Day. And what we were thinking of doing is, if they did that, we could splice them together with pictures of the banners that we have for veterans that we put around town, and pictures of previous Memorial Day parades, and set it to music, and we could put it on LHTV for that day of Memorial Day, and we could put it on our website, on Facebook. It would just be a nice way to pay tribute to the veterans who have passed on, in lieu of a parade.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, Guy.
Well, I was just going to say that's a wonderful idea, and it's the least we can do.
Yeah. Basically, I was going to say the exact same thing. So, Matt,
we're kind of backed into a corner, and that's a good idea considering circumstances.
Vic.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. No, that's great.
What other options are there? I think it's the best option to do something and honor the spirit of that parade.
And you know what we could do? We'll reach out to some other towns. I know we're very bright here in Long Hill, but sometimes somebody else comes up with a good idea. So if you guys don't mind, and gals, I'll reach out to a bunch of other towns, see if they have any ideas as to what they're doing. But for sure, thank Lisa for us, and I would proceed planning as you recommend.
Yeah,
given where we are right now, that's probably a good thing to start planning to do it.
I did. I have seen in my town school district, a bunch of the teachers put out messages to the kids, and they submitted them, and somebody at school put them together and put them to music, and it was a really nice. It was just a really nice thing, and just to tell the kids to keep their spirits up, things like that. And so that's what gave me the idea. Like we could do something like that for the veterans in lieu of.
Yeah, so thank you, Nancy. That's a great idea.
And Lisa's on the call if you needed her input.
Hi, Lisa.
Well, she can't talk. Do you want me to?
No, I mean, I think we're good on it. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's a great idea, and thanks to Lisa for not only thinking of it, but then actually she's going to be doing the bulk of the work, which is great.
Well,
So
hold on. It's less work than planning a parade.
yeah, probably.
That's true.
So
Sorry,
what
Lisa.
we'll put something out the next couple of days where residents can submit photos if they want, even short clips. And Mayor Lisa talked about, you usually give a speech. I know that Dick Dorsey gives a speech and some others. So maybe if you wanted to put something short together, a video of yourself, we can
Okay,
put that at the beginning.
that would be like a voiceover.
Well, it could be you. You could videotape yourself.
No.
We'll have your face, a video of you, and we'll get John F. Kennedy's speech.
No, I'll talk to Lisa about it. And, thanks. So any old business? Any new business? With that, any announcements from anyone?
There are no events
There are no
for the foreseeable future.
There's one thing I'll mention. I got an email yesterday. It's from the Watchung Hills Regional High School's Project Graduation Committee, and they, given where the schools are, and the fact that the seniors normally have a lot of events here within in their final year as kind of celebrations. They would like to, in lieu of those, they would like to do something to. They're doing a number of things to try and lift their spirits. And one of the things that they are doing is they're going to put lawn signs up on the lawns of the various sending districts. And so they have they sent me a flyer, which maybe we could put on the website, where it would give it would tell residents how they could purchase these lawn signs, and that way help Project Graduation, and also just recognise the seniors at Watchung Hills for all their hard work over the last 4 years. So Nancy, I'll send that on to you.
Okay.
So with no more announcements, I will open the meeting.
Oh, wait. Hey, Brendan, I did have one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw I got an email late in the day. I think I forwarded it to you guys from, I think it's United Way.
Oh, yeah.
Alice Recovery Fund. And it's basically a financial help for people that are struggling right now. I guess we could put on our website, because if I just rattle off some long URL address, nobody's going to remember. But basically, it's for single adults who have an income below basically $35,000 and no dependents, or a combined income of two adults under $52,000 without dependents. And there's a little bit more if you have dependents, but basically it's a way for them to apply for a grant or money to help them out and stem the tide. And I said they'll receive a minimum award of, if they're eligible, $500. They have to provide some documentation, but I know there's some people in town that this might be good for them to apply, or at least look into. It's called the Alice Recovery Fund. So I guess if you Google that, they can probably find it out that way. It's through the United Way, New Jersey.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
So with that, I will open the meeting to the public for remarks and statements pertaining to any matter.
So anyone who's watching, it is *9, I believe. Or if you're on the, no, I'm sorry, it's *9 if you're on the phone, but you press the raise your hand little button if you're on Zoom. Your former committeeman Marangelo. Hey, Bruce.
Great to see you all tonight.
Good to see
Hi,
you, Nate.
Bruce.
Two questions. First, what is the status of the parks in town? Are they open or are they usable? Specifically Cantor Park. And second, what exactly is on the top shelf behind Randy? Are those like bobblehead football players or something back there?
They look like Dallas Cowboys.
Other than that, you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. I'll let Randy answer the second question, but in regard to the first, what we have, all the parks in town are open for passive recreation, and so the playground areas are roped off. They're closed, but our parks are still open to the public.
So what's behind me is the Dallas Cowboys, older players when they could have huddles because they weren't all ex-convicts. Tom Landry, the head coach, and some of the other guys during that time period. So somebody found it and they knew I liked the Cowboys, so they.
Requirement was you had to be a Giants fan.
Bruce, are you good? You have anything else? You still there, Bruce?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bruce.
Bye.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, is there anyone else? Last chance? No
All right.
takers.
Okay, well, with that, I will thank everybody for attending and tuning in, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Stay safe, everyone.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Third.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Be safe. Be well.